Hello everyone, Mr. James here, and today we're going to be finding an unknown side. Sorry about that, I missed that when I was making these. This is one of the three methods we're going to have to learn for solving questions in this trigonometry unit. And the steps we're going to follow in this method are here. We'll write down the correct trigonometry ratio using what we learnt in the last lesson. We'll rearrange the ratio so that the unknown side, usually x, is by itself, and then we'll plug everything into a calculator to get the answer. Now, this might sound like it's complicated, rearranging everything to get x by itself, but the good thing is that it will be the same every time we do it, okay? I'm going to show you the algebra involved in rearranging the equation so that x is by itself. But once we know how it works, we're just able to do the same thing every time. You'll see what I mean in a second. Here is a more in-depth checklist for how to solve these questions. If you want to pause here and copy this down, it would be a good idea if you think it would be helpful for you to have that resource in your books to turn back to when you're answering questions. Let's jump into some questions. Before we get into actually looking at some triangles, I just want us to get used to the idea that this thing, sine 50 degrees, it's just a number and we can use our calculator to tell us what that number is. So I want you guys to do these with me. You don't necessarily have to write them down, but at least pick up your calculator and do these while I talk about them. Sine 50, if we put that in our calculator, we get this number. It's just a number, our calculator will tell us. It's the same as when we use pi. We don't really know what pi, well, you might know what pi is, but we don't try and remember pi because it's just a number in our calculator. It's the same thing with these trigonometric functions. Cos 16.1. Again, you just press cos 16.1 equals 0.960 ... and the last one, tan 77 degrees 18 minutes. If you've not seen this before, there's a button on your calculator that looks like this. It's like a degrees symbol and then an apostrophe and then a double apostrophe. That's your degrees minutes seconds button that you need to press to enter this. If you don't have a Casio calculator, you might have a button that looks like that, DMS, that stands for degrees, minutes, and seconds. So what you'll do here is you'll press 10, you'll press 77, then you'll press that degrees button, and then you'll press 18 and you'll press that degrees button. Don't be alarmed that it shows up like this in your calculator. That's fine. Your calculator knows what you mean. It just can't make this symbol. And if you plug that in, tan 77 degrees 18 minutes, you end up with this number. Alright, there we have it. Let's get some triangles involved now. It's a good idea to label the sides that we're interested in. Don't forget, we're still writing this on our pages that we're working on. In this case, we have O and A. So we're going to be dealing with tan. So I'm going to write down the trigonometric ratio. Remember, that was the first step in our success criteria. Okay, now we have to do some algebra to make x by itself. Here with the x we have divided by 20. The opposite of divided by is times. So we're going to times by 20. These ones will cancel out and we'll be left with, I'm going to swap the sides around. 20 times tan 35. That's what we had over here. Now, because tan 35 is just a number that our calculator will tell us, we can just go ahead and put this straight into our calculator. 20 times tan 35. And that comes to 14.0041 ... We're asked to answer to 3 decimal places, so there we have it. That's the answer. Now, I showed you how to do this the long way with the explanation of the algebra. But the good thing for you guys is that you don't have to do that every time. If you'll notice, what we did is when our x was on the top of the fraction, we just took this number and put it over here. Whenever the x is on top of the fraction, you'll do exactly the same thing. You'll multiply the trig ratio by the number on the bottom. You'll see what I mean as we do another example. The process will be exactly the same as this. You don't have to think about the algebra. You can just memorize the process. Let's see. I'm going to do the first one for you, and then if you want, just go ahead and do the next two. If not, you can listen to me do them all. All right, first one. We've got O and we've got H. Remember that's sine. We see that our x is on top of the fraction, so we know that that means we times by the 7. We're not going to worry about doing the algebra every time. We're just going to remember that this is the way we do it. And then to 2 decimal places, that's the answer. Next one. We've got O and we've got A. So we're going to go for tan. The x is on the top of the fraction, so we're just going to times by the 4. And again, to 2 decimal places, 3.60. There you go. Last one, we've got adjacent, we've got hypotenuse, we're going for cos here. And look at that, again the x is on top of the fraction, so we're just going to times by the 10. This needs to be our automatic reaction when we see the x on the top of the fraction, just times by the number below it. Because you may have guessed that there will be some scenarios where the x is on the bottom of the fraction, coming up in a lesson possibly next week, and that's going to have a different method. So yeah, we're going to commit this method to memory. When the x is on top, we times by the number below it. Here's some for you to do now. Pause the video here, take a crack at these. I'll have the solutions for you when you come back. And there you have it. There are the worked solutions for those 3 examples. So now you should be reasonably okay with this. We write down the ratio. We flip it around so x is by itself. Remember, in this case, we're just timesing by the number on the bottom of the fraction. And then that just goes into our calculator to give us the answer. If you still have some questions, please don't hesitate to contact your teacher or me. You've got some practice to do in the textbook now. Go ahead and get started on that. Thanks, guys.